Welcome back to the Filipino FM channel, your home for Filipino Football Manager content. Today, I am maxing out one aspect of each club in the Philippines Football League to see what part of the club is the most important for club development. So essentially, this is just going to be combining a bunch of different Football Manager 2023 experiments into one experiment to see which aspect of the club is most important. So with that, let's get into the different parameters I've changed for each club. So starting off with Mendiola, who is predicted to finish last place in the season preview, I have edited their club details, gone into their finances, and given them a £1 billion bank balance. And the reason I've given Mendiola the £1 billion bank balance is because I am hypothesizing that £1 billion is probably going to be the most helpful thing in this game. So by giving Mendiola £1 billion, they're expected to finish last. I think this will be the most helpful, but let's see what happens. Next up, predicted to finish sixth is Maharlika Manila. Similarly, I've given them a bunch of money, but instead of giving them £1 billion straight up, I've given them a £50 million per year individual TV deal. Now, they will eventually get £1 billion over the course of 20 years or so. So unlike Mendiola, who's getting all of that money up front and can do whatever they want with, Maharlika Manila will be getting £50 million every single year over the course of this save, and hopefully we'll see it help them out quite a bit. Next up, we have the Azcal's development team, predicted to finish fifth, and I've given them a wonderful, perfect stadium, the maxed out stadium that you can have in Football Manager. So the biggest stadium you can have in Football Manager, as you can see here, is 150,000 seats. So that's exactly what I've given them. Rizal Memorial Stadium is now a 150,000 seater stadium that, as we can see, based on their minimum and maximum club attendance, ADT will be maxing out and selling out every single game that they play. So we're going to see whether that might give them a reputation boost and higher income to improve their team over the years. Next up, in fourth in the season preview is Cebu Football Club, and I have decided to give Cebu Football Club perfect training facilities, youth facilities, junior coaching, and youth recruitment. And the hope here that Cebu will be able to bring through players and develop players with their training facilities. Now, this will be a good thing because they have great youth recruitment, great junior coaching, great training and youth facilities so they can develop and bring through youngsters. However, the Philippines doesn't have a lot of good players coming through them. It's not like I'm maxing out their youth rating. And Cebu isn't necessarily able to buy players because they don't have the money and maybe not the reputation as well. So while they can develop players, I don't know whether the players coming through Cebu will be that good. So it'll be interesting to see how the facilities are able to affect how Cebu does within the game. Next up is United City, predicted to finish third. And now, as opposed to one part of the club, because there wasn't a whole lot left to do, I've decided to give them the perfect manager. So as we can see here, United City has the perfect manager, 20s and everything, also has 200 current ability. So we'll see how the perfect manager is able to do. I was originally going to give United City the perfect coaching staff, but as you can see, they don't really have a coaching staff. They have 3 physios, an assistant manager, and a perfect manager. So I'm keeping it at the perfect manager for now, and we'll see how he does. Next up will actually be Stallion, now predicted to finish first, but I think that's just because of what I changed about them. So if we look at Stallion, what I've changed is their reputation. So I've given them the highest possible reputation in the game. So right now they have a higher reputation than even Manchester City. They have the global reputation, and around the world, this is considered the most reputable club in the world. Now, I'll give this to Stallion because reputation changes very quickly in the game, so I wouldn't be surprised if in 1 or 2 seasons we see that reputation knocked very quickly. But it'll be interesting to see in the short term whether Stallion can sign a bunch of players, make their way up the Philippines Football League, and at least have a higher reputation compared to the rest of the teams in the league, even though reputation does change drops kind of quickly. So I expect the reputation to drop, but I think it'll be interesting to see whether this does well for them in the short term. And finally, we have Kaya, originally expected to finish first, but now expected to finish second. Kaya is going to serve as our control. I haven't changed anything about Kaya. They are the exact same team as they are at the start of the game. And we'll see how they're able to do against every other team getting better in some way. So that is everything I have changed about each team in the Philippines Football League. Now we're going to come back 3 different times in the game. We're going to come back after 3 years, after 20 years, and in the year 2100. And the reason for this is I want to see one, after 3 years, this is kind of the length of a short-term save that people might do. So I want to see whether all of these things, how they may affect in the short term. Then we're going to come back after 20 years because this might be a long-term save that you all might do. Let's see how they do in 20 years. And also 20 years will be the time when Maharlika Manila mashes out Mendiola's 1 billion pounds. So we'll see whether at the point where those things equate to each other, how each team has done. And finally, I'm going to come back in the year 2100 to see how this does with a ridiculously long simulation. So let's go forward to July 2025 and let's see how each team is doing in 3 years. See you then. Welcome back. We are 3 years into the future. Let's see how each of our clubs are doing. All right, well, looking at the past winners of the Philippines Football League, this is interesting. Kaya, United City, and Stallion have each split the Philippines Football League over the past 3 years. This is a bit of a surprise. So looking at season one, no surprise for me that Kaya won the league. They were the best team, and one season doesn't really give enough time for our changes to mean anything. So I'm not surprised to see that Kaya has won the league there. But moving into season two, United City winning the league, suggesting that maybe having a perfect manager helped them to win. They were still a very good team, but maybe the perfect manager, having good tactical knowledge, being able to sign the right players, and being able to coach them well, helped lead them to victory over Kaya and Stallion. But now in season three, Stallion winning the league quite handily, actually. So maybe their reputation boost has allowed them to bring in some players. Let's look at and see what Stallion's reputation is now. It's 6140, which is quite high for a team in the Philippines. If we can look by comparison, Kaya would probably have the next highest reputation. If we look at club details, Stallion's reputation is much higher. Let's look at their team. Have they been able to sign good players? I'll tell you what, they've been able to sign a lot of international players, and they're able to pay them a decently high wage. So let's look and see for this level. I'm going to be honest, for this level, he's North Korean. This is actually a very good player for this level. The Philippines Football League isn't great. They are definitely bringing in some decent players for this level. I can see how Stallion was able to win the league. So certainly in the short term, as far as being able to attract the right players, Stallion, I think right now might be the front runner. So that reputation boost is definitely helping. And sure enough, looking at the rest of the Philippines Football League, for the most part, it's Stallion players who are in the Media Dream 11. But the interesting thing here is I'm seeing quite a number of Cebu players. And I'm looking at my notes here. Cebu had the improved facilities. How are their facilities still looking at this point in time? Their facilities are still absolutely fantastic. They have dropped as you know it has gone on. But let's see, have they been able to bring in through youth players? So their star players are all young Filipinos who they've brought through their academy. This is fantastic. Let's look at their players. They look decent. I'll tell you what, for this level, these are good players. The facilities must be helping. 87 to 105. I mean, these are all players who are very young and kind of look like Stallion players and certainly have a higher potential than them, all coming through Cebu. Wow, this is absolutely fantastic. And they have a really young team. They must be taking advantage of their facilities. I'll tell you what, let's look at their history. They've been getting better each year, kind of fourth, third, but they are predicted to finish second this year. I think when we move forward to 20 years, we see Cebu do pretty well. That being said, unfortunately, we haven't really seen anything from Maharlika Manila or Mendiola, despite all the money they have. So looking at Mendiola, I mean, they still have a ridiculous amount of money, 537 mil in the bank. And they are a professional side now. We can see here their professional status. They start us as semi-professional. They haven't, doesn't really look like they've improved their facilities though, or that they've expanded their stadium. So Mendiola doesn't seem to be making a huge amount of improvements from all the money that they've had. Similarly, Maharlika Manila is still getting all of that TV money, but it doesn't seem like they've done really anything that great looking at their overview. I mean, they're still a lower mid-table Philippines Football League side, so all that money not really helping at the moment. Similarly, the big stadium for ADT doesn't seem to be helping them a whole lot. Although looking at their finances, is that 15? Wow, but they have a lot of money in the bank balance, 15 mil. So they're definitely gaining a lot of money. It just doesn't seem like Football Manager really knows what to do with all of that money. Maybe they can't do anything with all of that money because they don't have the reputation boost or the facilities yet. So they may need to focus on those moving forward. So certainly in the short term, it seems that having a high reputation compared to the rest of your league is very important. And certainly improving the facilities is going to allow you to get in better young players quickly. But now let's move 20 years into the future to the year 2043. I think this would be the end for a long-term save for a lot of people. So let's see how each club is doing in 20 years. Welcome back to the year 2043. Stallion has absolutely dominated the last 20 years of the Philippines Football League. You know what? Reputation just might be the most important thing in the game. And looking at Stallion, I mean, they're paying some seriously high wages. It looks like they're just able to bring in better players from around the world. This guy, France Mateo, actually looks like, wow, wow, he's a really good player for this level. Oh my God, I wasn't expecting that. These are fantastic with great potential. I'm actually shocked at the level of players just looking at this team that Stallion has been able to bring in. Are they doing well in continental competition? So they've won the Philippines Football League many times, but I don't see them winning any continental competitions. Let's look at how much money they have. Maybe they're bringing in, they still have a very good reputation. I'll tell you what, that is still going to be the highest reputation in the league. I mean, they don't have a huge, they only have about 1 mil in the bank budget. I wonder though, but they have been able to get a better kit sponsor. I'm shocked at how I wasn't expecting Reputation to do so well. This really shows that it's, the frustratingly slow improvements in Reputation and Football Manager can actually have a big impact on your save because Reputation is clearly one of the most important parts of the game. So looking at the rest of them, so DHC has been kind of clearly the second best team. And let's look at how their facilities are at this point. So their facilities still absolutely phenomenal. And are they still bringing in? Yes. And I mean, this is a really interesting difference because we saw with Stallion, most of their important players were foreigners. While with Cebu, pretty much every important player is from the Philippines. And they are bringing through their own players who are pretty good for this level, but they're just not as good as the players that Stallion are able to buy. So looking at their important players here, I mean, they're all coming through the Cebu Academy. They definitely don't look as good as the Stallion players. I mean, they still look phenomenal for this level. Wow, I mean, this is really interesting to see how well Facility is done and the different types of players coming through each club. So the next best team I would say is probably ADT, and I believe they had the big stadium if I'm correct there. Yep, so they have Rizal Memorial Stadium, and they have been able to improve their training and youth facilities with the better stadium, and they have a lot in the bank balance now. So having a huge stadium is definitely helping them. So if you're able to improve their stadium, definitely that extra money is able to help. And it looks like they have a mix of people from the Philippines, but also people abroad. So looking at their star players, they were able to sign this guy who looks pretty average for this level. He's good, but he's not great. And with the improved facilities, are they also bringing players through? He was signed on a free 17-year-old here. Yep, he came through ADT. So maybe they're bringing through some players, but this is more of a mix. So really interesting to see there. I guess next is Maharlika Manila, but honestly, I'm pretty disappointed at how Maharlika Manila has done. They've only broken in the top three a few years, but really, they've been kind of the fourth best team throughout. So despite all of the money, which they have a huge amount of money now, they're still getting that 50 million pounds in income. They've matched the money that Mendiola's gotten, but they haven't been able to get to the top of the Philippines Football League. I'm a little surprised there. And looking at their transfer history, I mean, despite having a huge budget, they're not spending that much money on players. But I wonder again if it's because they don't have the reputation to be able to sign those players. They're not able to attract, the best of the best even for this league. And they've improved training and youth facilities, so that's good to see. But it doesn't really look like they've improved their stadium. I have to say, I don't know if they've done a lot with the 50 million pounds they're getting every year. Next up, I'm going to look at Mendiola. I mean, they haven't really done anything. I mean, they're kind of just a meh team. How much money do they still have from that 1 billion? Let's see. They still have 504. Is that right? 514 million. They barely spent any of it. What's going on? Have they? Okay, edit clubs. I mean, the last time we saw them, they had like 500 mil still. I mean, they've improved their. Mendiola has not done a lot with £1 billion. I'm actually quite disappointed here with what they've done. I mean, clearly, like, the game doesn't know what to do with all this money, but at the same time, they just don't have the reputation to be able to spend a lot of money. I mean, we're seeing really low transfers in values. They're not spending it on their facilities or the stadium. I mean, they're really it seems that the low reputation just means they aren't able to do a whole lot. Looking at the rest of the Philippines Football League, Kaya was our control. They've dropped down the leagues massively. Again, not having any of those boosts has clearly affected them, so clearly other teams having those boosts is very important. And finally, looking at United City, they no longer have the perfect manager. That's not really a surprise. And you know what? When the perfect manager was there, they probably started doing well, but they're at this point they're essentially another control team, and they're doing just the same as Kaya. And I'm looking at the perfect manager in the game. He's not even around anymore, so at this point he's probably retired and out of the game. So honestly, I think these results are really surprising so far because facilities have helped DHC Cebu to win one title, but the most important thing we're seeing so far is reputation. So with that, let's go to the year 2100 for just an extremely long point of view, and let's see what's happening then. All right, welcome back. We are in the year 2100 and looking at the past winners. Okay, well, this is interesting. So Stallion dominated until they kept dominating for a little bit longer. After that, ADT won a number of titles before Stallion took it over. And ADT has been absolutely phenomenal before Maharlika Manila in recent years has done it. I don't know if we can really get anything from that. So ADT was the one with the improved stadium. And it seems that in connection with the improved stadium, they've been able to have fantastic facilities. I mean, they've been able to max everything out. Their finances are fantastic. This is interesting. I mean, it's clearly helped their finances out. They're bringing in great players. They're able to play. Wow, the Philippines Football League is paying huge wages now. I mean, let's look at this player on 65,000 a week. Wow, he looks really good. I'll tell you what, the Philippines Football League is bringing in some pretty decent players now. But that being said, so I guess having a huge stadium in the very long term is helping. And then Maharlika Manila, again, they were bringing in all that money. Do they still have the huge income? Yep, big bank balance, huge income. They're getting some other stadium sponsors as well. They've been able to improve their training and youth facilities, although not a whole lot with their stadium. So clearly, I'm going to say this. I think the income each year, whether it's through the stadium or sponsorship deals, is probably something that's really helped each of these two sides with their sustainability. Of course, Stallion was able to make their mark right away. They are still a fantastic club, so their reputation is certainly helping them. But what I'm curious to see is what happened with Mendiola. So again, we gave Mendiola £1 billion, and looking at their finances, they don't have much of that £1 billion anymore. They improved their trading facilities, but they didn't really do much. So it seems like over time, that money just went away. They are spending higher amounts of money now, but that doesn't seem like it's anything different from the league. So their highest was the 7 million they spent here on Nike Unazawa. But otherwise, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of disappointing outlays from them, to be honest. I was expecting a little more. Looking at the rest of the Philippines Football League, DHC, I'm sure that their facilities have gone down. Yep, they've gone down compared to the rest of the league. It's not quite there anymore. And they have a much different makeup of their team than they used to have. Previously, it was all players that were coming through, but now it's a much more international squad. And looking at the season preview, unsurprisingly, Kai and United City, who at this point don't really have any help, are considered to be the two worst teams in the league. So this was a really interesting experiment. So even in the short and medium term, it's pretty clear that reputation is kind of the most important part of the game as far as short term and medium term and even long term success. But in the short and medium term, I think facilities have been shown to be really important. And anything else in the long term, having a lot of money seems to help teams in the game. So if you're frustrated at a lack of an improved reputation in the game, I think you definitely have the right to be because we've shown here how important reputation is in building a better team and being able to sign the best players. But certainly, if you can't improve your reputation that quickly, it seems that stadium improvements and facilities improvements are, in fact, really important, as we have seen here. And if you have the money to make those improvements, that will definitely help. So with that, this was a really interesting experiment. I hope you have enjoyed this Football Manager 2023 experiment, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!